Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all of the ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333, and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, 1000 Week Reich as the Republic of India. Last war, we finished up our war of both the Socialist Republic of Bengal and the RSS, which our dear friend Kev in Twitch chat has pointed out an interesting fact. They are still a real organization to this day. They have between 5 and 6 million members. At first, I thought that was a lot. And it probably still is a lot in the grand scheme of things, but when you think about India, India has, a billion people? It's kind of a drop in the bucket. Like, if that was 100 million, that's, 5 to 6%. But out of a billion? 0.5, 0.6, I want to say? A small-ass percentage like that. Yeah, 1.3 billion, so it's even smaller than that. So, it's a lot of people, but at the same time, it's not really. Well, that's my version of shower thoughts, I guess, though. Just something I thought of when I read that. Anyway, so that's where our last video. We also kind of realized how kind of screwed we are because we only have 2 research slots, and we can only get a 3rd, not a 4th. Well, I kind of run out of research and shit to do after a while anyway, so it may not be the worst. So, just staying hydrated. She almost 1.4 billion. I've almost overtaken China. That doesn't surprise me. Because China kind of screwed themselves with that, one-child policy. Well, they had that started, 30, 40 years ago? And now, around now, they have a big shortage of 30 to 40-year-olds. On top of that, you have, sex discriminating abortions, where whatever the term is for getting rid of a baby just because it's not the gender you want. Had a lot of those. So they got rid of a bunch of girls. Now they're a bunch of lonely men in China who quite literally probably have no chance of finding a woman. Quite possibly just because there aren't any women to find, or there aren't that many to find. It's a weird situation they're going through. At least from what I've read. I could be full of shit right now. Egyptian Revolution? So yeah, I don't think India has that problem, though. So they might be okay. London Heathrow. Japan has gone red, it looks like. Or, that was a bloodbath, not the revolution, never mind. I was about to say, I thought they, because they went anarchist in my LP. The first go of this recording, of this series. Which, unfortunately, I think I'd said this in the last video. Didn't work out because the audio was not captured. Nonetheless. They're trying to scrambling try and fix it. They started allowing 2 kids a couple years ago, and then 3 scrapped entirely. Yeah. Problem is, when you're missing that big a portion of your population, you're gonna hit a road bump somewhere along the line. Even though most people still don't want to have kids because cost of living is actually shocking. Oh yeah. Probably get to this point after I read this, so I'll be right back. From the packed urban core of Mumbai to the remote forest of Assam, millions of people cast their votes for a new leader in India. At the ballot, the people of India are presented with 3 options. The first is Subhas Chandra Bose, leader of a social democratic faction of the Indian National Congress. His line is one of self-reliance as well as a political and cultural unification of the Indian subcontinent. The ultra nationalist energy of his campaign has produced a highly loyal and dedicated base, eager to unite all of India under one culture and erase any vestige of British colonialism. His main opposition on the left are the INC socialists guided by Jayaprakash Narayan. Narayan seeks to recreate Indian life both culturally and economically. However, socialists are in a coalition split between the Marxist-Leninists and Gandhian pacifists. It's unsure which faction would gain supremacy if they were to win an election. Distinct from both of these is a faction of these factions are liberal conservatives under Morarji Desai. Desai is not a nationalist nor a socialist. The conservative seeks to spur the Indian economy through the use of free market policies and Western investments. Calling for peaceful expansion, his platform is not as radical as the other two, but stranger things have happened in this land. Ultimately, the future of his country is in the hands of the electorate, and their decision is, Bose will keep the status quo. So we bypassed 2 off the bat. We had our Indian elections. India may not be the stable and prosperous country it deserves to be, but it still stands proud as the world's largest democracy. Time to once again show the world and exercise in democracy again appears as the new election approaches. Who will be given the confidence of 300 million Indians to guide the nation into the future? It turns out to be Bose. Continues his plan. The Indian Republic, long dreamt of by many, now realized in the wake of the British withdrawal, it is an imperfect dream, but it pulses with vitality in the direction of a liberator. Subhas Chandra Bose hopes to blossom in its heart of liberation. Indian industry and culture will flow again, purged of unhealthy and foreign influence. Indian territory will be retaken, and the dreams of a great India realized in a single lifetime. Let the world shake in awe. From Delhi, a tiger rises, and its eyes are set in glory. Even most people don't want to have kids because of cost of... Oh, yeah. Bose has been reelected. I'm just going to read some stuff, and then I'll get back to that point. As charismatic leader of the Indian National Congress, Bose's popularity has not faded despite the many events his time as Prime Minister. Riding on his wave of popularity, Subhas Chandra Bose has successfully mounted an effective election campaign, managing to secure landslide support for and within the INC and the nation at large. Re-elected to office, Bose's new term shall be one of reconstruction, ultimately reunification of India, a drastically different outlook since his days as a revolutionary leader. No surprise there. So we're about to finish our civilian industry, get a little bit extra factories, which we're actually doing very well factory-wise. I'll look for some more places about factories. Calcutta's a good place to do that. They have some good infrastructure there. Same with South Bengal. Anywhere else? Bombay has some decent potential. Madras as well. So we'll queue up some more factories there. Excellent. Civilian industry. Next, let's go ahead and do... Let's work on a self-reliant India, get some construction speed, actually. In the past, India was the greatest producer of goods and the most prosperous area in the world. However, through decades of colonial oppression and instability, we've lost our place at the forefront of global power. The first step towards regaining our lost glory is to ensure that India will never again be relegated to importing goods from other nations. We're more than capable of doing so, we must only concentrate our efforts. So yeah, China. What was I about to say? I bring this up occasionally because I think it is kind of interesting. I went to China in November 2019, which, first off, my bad for bringing back that whole demonetization virus. I don't think it was my bad, but if it was, that's my bad. But secondly, you know, I gotta see what it was like, and it's interesting for sure. There's a lot of cheap stuff in there. You could get knickknacks for a few bucks, assuming you weren't in big touristy areas. Korean protest crushed. You could get 2 beers for $1. Only an emergency. So you had a lot of cheap stuff going there. But I also didn't have to find an apartment there. And I know the housing market there is fucking insane. Can't get an apartment easily. Which is not good. And one thing about China, which you'd think is the case, but it isn't, because they're a very communist country, semi-officially, but they don't really have that much in the way of welfare. Japan renounces the right to war, conservatives win the UK elections. Interesting stuff. Japan doesn't really have very good pension system, or Japan has good pension systems. China doesn't. And so, if you get old, you kind of just have to depend on your children. Which, remember, they have the One China policy, so you're going to have a bunch of old people coming up, only have one child to support them, and that one child has a job. Probably. So they have to choose between their job and supporting their parents. Even then, you still own the apartment, you're only paying for a lease to it. It's not optimal, but at least in that case, you can get it, you know. But even that, there's no, you know, you can't settle roots down, you don't have a house, no property, any of that. So it's not preferable even remotely. Self-reliant. Oh, jeez. What happened there? Kolchak. Okay. I think that's Zhukov who's there. Yeah, because Khrushchev is there. I think Zhukov had a little which is unfortunate. Let's go ahead and modernize with the Americans. India's rich mines and great plantations, despite our fertile soils and prosperous fields, cannot compete with the rising tide of industrialization, which has inverted the traditional economic dominance of Asia towards the massive factories of Europe. In order to compete, we must also embrace industrialization with the aid of Americans, increase our productivity tenfold. Only through adopting the modern industries of the West will we be able to catch up and surpass them. I've never seen that happen. Yeah, I haven't either. Socialism and Chinese characters. All the drawbacks of communism with none of the benefits. Not all the... Okay, there we go. Yeah, shit. One thing about China that works is that they actually have a decently functioning economy. In the sense that they, they can, what am I trying to say? God damn it. They produce... They have, economic, they're pretty competitive economically, which, at the very least, the Soviet Union was not until the very end, and by then, the whole system was imploding and it was too late to do anything. The pan, okay. But, I was about to make another point. I forgot what I was doing. But I mean, the Chinese system, it depends on what you define as working, whether it works or not. It makes money. If that's your sole definition of a functioning economy, there you go. But it also just has some issues. I mean, if you don't only have to go bozo to crush Pakistan, it feels so wrong, but what must be done shall be done. I don't fully know if bozo is the only way you can crush Pakistan, full disclosure, but I think it's the easiest. I'm looking at it. Yeah, this is detente with Pakistan. Knocker pacifism is a guarantee. You could actually do it in the Marxist path, but I also hear the Marxist path is kind of or at least one of the communist paths I think is a crush. At the very least, bozo is a fun way to do it. True. Next, let's rebuild what the British left. The British, with their industrial oppression, prevented us from expanding our industrial capacities to their true limits. Despite that, there are still some pieces of useful industry and infrastructure built up in certain areas of the Raj, and many still function stay just in need of repairs. The weak infrastructure and undeveloped industry from the British must be refixed and reconstructed. After all, any industry that can be a springboard for us to begin our industrial revolution. So yeah, I'll now accept any questions you have about my time in China. Or China might not be doing too hot soon. I'm less qualified to enter the second one, but I'd say I could pull up pictures, but I don't know if I have my computer off the top of my head. Also, I don't fully know the story of Boza. Also, I'm pretty sure we're not supposed to be able to do early mobilization. But we're gonna do it anyway. Look at that. Heh. Were you never worried about gutter oil? I never heard of it! I still don't know it off the top of my head. So I'm gonna say we're fine. I wasn't too worried about it. I had a friend who wouldn't shut the fuck about there being tapeworms in the food there. So that kind of concerned me a little bit. Let's get construction 1. What do we want to do? I think the Hell of a World market might not be the best. We don't need to close ourselves off, because that's going to give us a bunch of nasty downsides. The Indian unification question. The liberation of the motherland was in the end an incomplete one. The British retreat left the streets of Delhi free for the taking, but even as the INA was greeted with cheering crowds in Delhi, the southern northwest provinces betrayed the revolution. The shattered nation now stands as easy prey for foreign nations and as dangerous harbors of foreign influence. If we are to complete what was promised to the nation of Burma, we must make it whole first. The banners fly in the sun, a promise of a dream long deferred, now coming to fruition. Jai Hind. Long live India. Let us march to victory or give our lives in the effort. There's a number of restaurants in China that were paying for oil to cook the food, literally scoot out of sewers and use it to make people sick for oil. I'll say this about that. We could have gone on our own, and we did a fair amount of time. So there are a few restaurants, scratch that, maybe 1 or 2 restaurants that we could have gone to, or food stands that actually had that problem. Most of them were, though, were where they wanted us to go. Like, they're on the tour, sort of a state thing. It was basically a state-sponsored tour. We found out that they basically subsidized the flights and all that because the airfare was very, like, the whole total trip, without adding any on the trip add-ons, was like $600, $700. That covers airfare, hotels, 2 meals a day, and a trip to the Great Wall. A couple other things as well. That's pretty fucking cheap. The reason why it was so cheap is that the Chinese government subsidized it. Essentially. Akun Perm. Yeah, it's insanely good, but the thing... Part of it is that you end up having to go to a bunch of their, Can I bypass these? I'll just bypass that, because it doesn't matter too much for us. The thing that comes with that is that you go pretty much where they want you to go. One of that is we didn't have too many options. One came to food, but that wasn't, that kind of leads me to what I'm about to say, is that I doubt if it's a Chinese government-sponsored thing and they're keeping an eye on the restaurants, they'll probably not, they're probably not going to do that there at those restaurants. And I don't remember getting sick from any of them, so I think we're good. So we have a couple options. Burma with an Indian face. Fun. We have a couple options down the line. So it's going like North Korea towards an extent, but less propaganda. Yeah. It was a private company that ran it, and our tour guides, like, we went to Tiananmen Square, and on the way our tour guide said, yeah, we know a bunch of people, I know a bunch of people died here. Chinese government just doesn't talk about that. It was like, oh, nothing happened here. The guy was like, yeah, people fucking died here. I think all of our tour guides were like, yeah, there was some shit that went down here. We're not gonna lie. We just can't really talk about it. Well, they talked about it with us, but they couldn't talk about it with other Chinese people per se, at least in public, because it's China listening. Base Chinese tour guides. Because we found out he had a 3-foot tapeworm though. Maybe that you keep as a pet. That might be cool. A Joe Hyde. But it just didn't work out like that, unfortunately. Let's get one culture for all of India. A nation long divided cannot stand. India's diversity has birthed so much of its cultural heritage from the world. It's long stood in awe of our work, but the time for division is over. We must hammer the disparate strands of culture, language, and class from rolling into a single mighty fist. It may be painful and certainly not be easy, but the thought of a truly unified India once made the British tremble, and when you've done, the rest of the world follows suit. It's a nightmare, though. Dude, I heard rumors. I hear, and I think of, like, in the modeling world, the girls would intentionally give themselves tapeworms so they could stay that skinny. That kind of, I don't know how actually serious or common that was, but just hearing that. Jesus. Well, that's it for the YouTube people. As always, thanks for watching. Like if you just did dislike if you didn't. Comments, feedback, concern, comment section below. Check out the links, and yeah, see you guys next time. Goodbye.